Hi, everybody. I am Erica, travel occupational therapist and owner-operator of The List, where you can see all of the direct jobs from multiple agencies in one place, and you can connect with the recruiter directly from one place. So today, I am here with DeLibra Wesley. She is the CEO of National Recruiting Consultants, and she is going to be talking with us about what happens with your whole pay package. So the bill rate breakdown. So hi, DeLibra. Thank you so much
Hi,
for your time.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yay. Okay. So today we're going to talk about the bill rate breakdown. So we're going to look at the whole pay package that comes from the hospital over to the agency and what happens with all of that money from there. Is that right?
Exactly. Going to give you guys the look behind the screen so you can kind of understand where all the costs are.
Perfect. I'm not sure if I'm the only dork that really likes math. Like, I want to know everything and I want everything broken down for me. So I'll be interested if other travelers care about this or if they just care about what they end up with at the end of the week. But I'm so curious, like I want to know all of it. So we'll see.
Yeah, I typically am not that much into the numbers, but owning a company, I have to be, so I got to watch the numbers. But yeah, I'm interested in knowing how many of the travelers out there are really curious to see how the breakdown works.
Yeah. So, okay, I think we both have a funny story or like an awkward story about billing. Do you want to share your
Sure.
story first?
So yeah, I had a very awkward situation. It's been a few years back, but I mean, actually, I guess it was around the time when clients were still faxing things. But we had a traveler on assignment, and we just negotiated her extension. And the rehab director, he signed off on her confirmation letter with the bill rate that we were billing the hospital, hands it over to the traveler, and says, "Hey, fax this back to your agency." So she looks at the contract, of course, where she sends it over, and it has the bill rate on it, not her pay rate, but like the rate that that the hospital would pay us, the agency.
Right.
Yes, so that was a really awkward conversation because, of course, she called in saying, "What? You're making this much money off of me? I need a raise. I need
Right.
more." And so it was just and I think it was the first time that we really had to sit down and explain to someone like what all goes behind the number so they really understand that it's not that the agency is trying to get one over on you. There's really a lot of overhead and expenses that go behind that number. So it was pretty funny now, very awkward then.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Well, now you won't have to explain again. You can just show them this video. I had a similar situation happen. It was my very first contract, and I was making $1,700 a week cash take home. And the person that was doing the billing had showed me the paycheck that she was sending to my agency. And I was like, that's not right. I make $1,700 a week. And this check was for like the mid 2000s. It was like for $2,500 or something. And I was like, that's not right. I only make $1,700 a week. She's like, no, that's what we pay your agency for you. And I was like, what? They're making all of this. They're making $800 on me a week. That's what? Like, that's crazy. I should be a 1099 worker. I think that when we see that number, that like that 15 to 30% that the agencies keep, we're automatically like, I'm going to go be a 1099 worker. I don't want to pay that to you. Not realizing where that money goes and that is not your profits. That's what goes to the agency to pay all of your bills. So today we're going to look at what those bills are and what the actual profits are on you.
Okay. Yep.
Cool. So DeLibra and I kind of talked about this. We walked through it before we got on this call because there's some math involved. So we kind of agreed on some common numbers so that we could work through this together and look at it. And so the pay package, the whole pay package that we decided on, that's a common normal pay package, is $36,400 for the entirety of you working at that facility for 13 weeks. And that breaks out to be $2,800 a week from the facility to the agency for you to be there. And then that's where these numbers start from. Is that right? We on the same
That's
page?
right. That's right.
Perfect. Okay, cool. So let's go into, is it helpful for me to pull up the slideshow that you made?
Yeah, I think it would, especially for the travelers out there, to just, it's hard to just go over numbers and talk about them. I think it's a lot easier if you can see them as well. So yeah, I think that would be a good idea if we could just pull it up and show them.
So
it's just a couple of slides.
Perfect. I'm going to screen share. And while I'm screen sharing, do you want to tell us, and I've asked other recruiters this, so I'm curious what you'll say, because I haven't told you what they've said. What is the range that agencies keep from your paycheck, and what percentage does your agency keep? Not to put you on the spot.
So the range, meaning the percentage or the dollar amount?
The percentage.
So the percentage, okay. So our goal is 25% as the profit of the individual job, but that's before operational expenses. And so after ops expenses, the goal would be to have a net profit of 10%. So if we look at it and we have a job that has a gross margin percentage of 25%, I think what we have for an example is 27, and then the operational expenses, so everything that goes in the middle of that, like everything between employment taxes, workers' compensation costs, malpractice costs, all of those different factors that are built in. The difference in that is like your overhead. Let's see, if it's an agency that has a huge office or even a small office, that's why it's hard to know an exact number, because every place is different. But all of your utilities, your expenses, your costs for support, most agencies have IT, accounting, payroll people. Some of them even have in-house legal. And so all of those additional costs are in there. And so on the other side of that cost, a very profitable agency would have 10%. So it definitely varies. And I would say that from job to job is different. But you just want to be able to say, like, at least on a quarterly basis, this is the percentage that we're overall bringing in. Because some things happen, you may have a great traveler that you need to retain and you have to pay that person a little more, but it's worth it to retain that traveler. Or maybe they want to go to a location where the bill rates just aren't high enough, but if they want that assignment, you take a little bit of a hit to give that person the opportunity that they need. So in the long run, you just want to average it out. But the example that we have here was, I try to be close to what we see. We do see bill rates a bit lower, down to like the $63 to $65 range, and sometimes up to $75. So I try to kind of hang in the middle there. And so with the hourly rate that we bill to the client would be $70. The rate that we would pay the traveler, and this is the taxable rate, would be $23 an hour. And then let's just say with meals and incidentals and a housing stipend that it equals $150 a day. And then a one-time travel allowance of $400. So this to me looks like a pretty standard deal. Not a lot of hocus pocus there. Now I know there are things that we do. Sometimes we have referral bonuses. Sometimes we have credential allowances. Maybe you give them a reimbursement for their license. So there are other things that can play into this, but I just tried to make it pretty clean just for an example.
Yeah, definitely. And so this is just, like we said, we took that example rate, and this is how that example rate would break down. So if it was $2,800 a week total that DeLibra's agency was getting, then $70 hourly is what the bill rate would be for that. And then this is the breakdown of what the traveler would be getting paid. I think it's more detailed on the next slide.
Yeah. So if you look at the deal from a weekly basis, the bill rate or what the check that you saw would be 2,800 coming to the agency. And the pay rate that we would pay to the traveler, that's the taxable income, the hourly rate's $800. And then for the week, $10.50 in per diems. And the $400 travel allowance, you would break it out so that you pay. So even though we pay those in advance, like after the first check, the way we cost it in accounting is you spread it out over the length of the assignment, so you don't take a hit at the very beginning of the assignment. So that would break down to $31 coming out of the assignment a week for that. And then I have a credentialing cost in that is about $200. So let's say you need a drug screen, background check, we paid for your CPR, maybe there's some licensing. On average for a new assignment, I would say that we spend about $200 on credentialing. And then benefits, the cost that I put in, what I think is pretty customary and standard is that the agency pays $250, sometimes $300 for your benefits. So that's the employer cost, not the portion that you pay. In this assignment or for this agency, I would say $250. So that comes out of, that's for 3 months for a 13-week assignment. So weekly, it's a $55 charge from the assignment. And then the payroll tax, I'm sorry,
okay,
go ahead.
so let me pause you just so I understand. The $55, this is, so we're looking at a weekly rate. $55 a week times 13 weeks isn't $250 though.
I just said 250 times 3 to make it easy, and then I divided it out. 250 times 3 is 750, but divided by 13 is 55. I think that was my math. I made it, instead of going 13. So usually
the
the way
total amount that you're, per month. Okay. So you're
per
250
month,
per month. I understand. So the total for the 3 months we're saying is about $713. And that's where
we're kind of breaking it. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Got it. Making sure we're tracking the math.
The payroll tax and workers' comp is usually about 12% or so of the taxable pay rate. So that comes from, and I averaged it out a little bit to make it even numbers. I took all the pennies and everything off. But basically what I wanted to show you is like a little bit more than 10% of the taxable rate goes to us paying unemployment taxes, the employer payroll taxes, workers' compensation, malpractice. And what's so interesting is that what I've seen over the years is that the requirements from our hospitals, especially for work or malpractice, have increased. So the percentage that we've had to put into the bill rate. So if you were to go 1099, you'd have to see all of that, like getting your own workers' comp, malpractice. It's pretty costly. So you'd have to go, it looks like maybe, I should just do this for myself. But then when you go and really back all these costs into it, it can get pretty costly. And the reason why our rates are decent is because we have so many, you have more buying power. So the bigger your agency is, the better your rates become. But if you're a solo person, you're going to pay quite a bit just to have your self-insured. So that's also something to keep in mind.
That's interesting.
When you're a traveler, you're in a pool of people. So that makes the rates better.
Right. That's interesting. Right. So I'm sure a lot of us have thought, whatever, I'm just going to go be a 1099 employee. What is that? $750 a week. Like, I'll figure that out. But then you don't think of, you for sure have to have yourself insured. You're going to be paying your own credentialing. You still need to get your drug test done. You need to get all of your background checks and all of that done. You're going to be paying for your own travel. And then taxes, workers' compensation.
Your own malpractice, because no one's going to let you practice without it. It adds up pretty quickly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's interesting. That would be interesting to do a breakdown of like what it would actually cost to be 1099s. We're talking about this with another recruiter on the show, so we should definitely look into that.
I know
Yeah,
benefits alone, it is pretty costly, starting, trying to do and not have an employer portion. That means you pay for it all. If you ever paid for like Cobra insurance, that's what you're looking at every month without any supplemental help from an agency.
right.
So it is costly. I mean, I'm sure, there's pluses and minuses either way, but it definitely gets pretty pricey quick. So it adds up. Now, that is what I would say is your gross profit. So for this deal, we have 27% left after paying those expenses each week.
Okay.
Now, if we, like, I think we brought it up already, if we were to put a VMS or a MSP in this assignment, they would take 2 to 5% off of that 2,800 a week. So the check that the agency would get would be short that amount. 5% is quite a bit, and then you still have all of those costs. So that brings that GP number way down.
Yeah, and so that was something I wanted to point out to you guys. So if we're talking about this whole pay package, this $36,400, if this job comes through the VMS, remember VMS is like their big like computer systems where a bunch of hospitals will put their jobs into these systems and they shoot out to all of the agencies. Those systems charge 2 to 6% for their services. That's the fee to use that VMS and to get that information shot out everywhere. So if your job comes through a VMS, automatically, if it was 5%, $1,820 would be taken off the top of the whole thing. So that's $140 a week right out of your paycheck if it comes from a VMS job. So a direct job then on average roughly would pay you about $140 more per week than a VMS job. So just to re-clarify this, because I don't know that people always know what I mean when I say direct jobs on the list. These jobs, the agencies have a direct relationship with the facility. So they know the hiring manager at that hospital, at that outpatient facility, whatever it is. So that job doesn't have to go through the VMS. So on average, it should be about $140 more that you're being paid versus a job that went through the VMS and they're having to pay that $140 a week fee. Is that, I think that's,
it's pretty costly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
So
explanation.
thank you. Okay. So this is your next slide.
Yeah. So this is where, you wonder what did we say the number was? $760, the 27%.
Yeah, $756 in this example is going per week is going to the agency. The agency's keeping $756. So we're going to look at where they're spending that $756 because that is not their profit. They have all this overhead. So this is what the overhead is.
So yeah, there's quite a bit. And I mean, I took a quick glance at my budget to come up with this list, but there are many other things that every agency is a bit different, so they may have different things in their operational expenses. But for instance, if you have utilities, phone, rent, if the agency has a brick and mortar, an office, all of that will come out of that 27%. Job boards, anything that we do to advertise or market our jobs to get them out there. You guys probably see them on Indeed, you see them all over, that comes from the additional operational expense. It doesn't come from your individual job. Conferences, referral fees, for us to have a booth at a conference, they charge the agencies a lot to present at those conferences. So that gets really expensive really fast. And then you have to take the employees and send them there and feed them.
I don't think, like, when I started travel healthcare, I didn't know about all the Facebook groups, and I kind of knew about referral fees. That was all I knew about, but I had no concept how much money the agencies spend every year to find us. To find us and get us into a contract is their biggest push. That's their biggest difficulty. That's why they pay those referral fees that we've talked about that don't get paid out 50% of the time. That's the statistic, DeLibra. I don't know. I know it's bad. It's yucky. I don't like it. But not only are they paying out those referral fees to your friends or saying they're going to get you to take a job, they're doing anything they can to get you into the agency. And it is expensive for them. I mean, booths at these conferences are thousands and thousands of dollars.
Thousands.
And then they throw these parties and they're buying us these drinks. I mean, thousands and thousands of dollars. Can you give me, like, if at a major conference, I don't want to say a conference name because I, don't know, but at a major conference, what would you spend on, like, entertaining travelers, the booth, the getting your employees there, the hotel rooms? Like, what would you spend to do one conference?
Oh man, I would say anywhere from 10,000 to 30,000. It gets really expensive. It depends on how many people you send. It depends on if you do a party or not. Mm-hmm. It depends on where you're located in the expo. If you're in the back corner, I mean, that even the position in there, it costs. Yeah. You have to pay for a bigger table. If you have a smaller table, that meant that you didn't put as much money in as the people with the huge tables that are in the center of the expo. I mean, that alone can be 30 grand, just where your table placement is.
Yeah. Well, I know you're saying 10 to 30, and I'm like, there's no way. These agencies they're spending way more than that. I can tell you there's a healthcare staffing conference. So I recently just joined these, healthcare staffing affiliations, these groups, just to be more aware of the market and get industry stats. And just one ticket for me personally to go, on top of my membership, there's my annual membership, which is like $1,500. And then one ticket for me to go to that conference is $1,500. That's not a table. That's not entertaining travelers. That's not my hotel, anything. That's just a ticket for me as one human to show up at that conference. So the costs of advertising to find travelers is enormous. And so
I would say if it's outside, it may be the largest operational expense outside of like just rent if you have a really nice office space. But with COVID, I think a lot of agencies have realized, well, we can do this from home, and they're able to maybe save some money there if they're closing some of their locations. But some of them aren't. Some of them are, because another thing, part of what I didn't really bring in, but kind of fits into benefits, is there's a lot that goes into training for a recruiter and a salesperson. That we spend thousands teaching them when you get a traveler on the phone, what do you say? How to educate them on how to talk to that traveler and have a meaningful conversation so that they do want to spend time with you. That's a whole nother industry. There are salespeople that hit you up to train your salespeople. And so we spend thousands just training so that, because it's hard to get you guys on the phone and engaged with you. And if you get them on the phone, that's gold. You better know what you're saying when you get them there, because everybody wants to get them. So
yeah, and then you don't want to lose us. It's crazy, like how precious it is. Like, this is why all the agencies are fighting so hard for us, because they just need us in a contract under them so that they can have a business. And it's their biggest issue is finding us and putting us into a contract. So that is, it sounds like, their biggest expense. And I think, and that is definitely why, as an industry, why we're trying to solve this problem, so that it's not so hard, so that the recruiters aren't chasing us. Like it used to be when I started in the industry 5 years ago, recruiters would chase us like used car salesmen, and we revolted. We were mad about it. We're like, stop calling us, stop texting us, stop emailing us. You're harassing us. And now it's sort of shifted, I think, with COVID, but also with a change in the industry.
Social media. Social media has changed the whole sale. And, some agencies, so I'm a part of some pretty big associations, and there was a conversation that we had about an event that we're finally going to be in person for. And half of the CEOs in that discussion are like, very old school. We got to get back to cold calling. We need to get people training people to pick up the phone. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, this person's spending all their money on that when they need to be more focused on training people on how to use social media, because you got to go where the travelers are. And most of us nowadays are on Facebook or on Instagram. And we don't really want people don't really heck, I don't even want to answer my phone all the time. I get it. I see my phone ringing. I don't know who it is. But if you text me, I'm likely to respond.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. That's a whole nother, how recruiters are trained. It's a whole nother topic, but it's a cost. We
Right.
spend thousands of dollars working on training programs, paying the recruiter, paying the support staff that supports the recruiters, the referral fees. I'm a bit dismayed by that percentage that you just said, 50%. I don't think that we would be in business if people,
I know.
I'm really kind of shocked because we're starting to see that the number one source is referrals. Like people are referring like crazy. And so I don't understand that. I assure you that national recruiting consultants average will not be 50%.
We'll be paying you.
we'll be paying you. Plus,
You heard it here from the
sleep at
CEO.
night.
They will pay you if you
Yes.
do a referral.
I call, you know what? I call things that are kind of underhanded, like bad gross margin or dirty gross margin. If you're making money by cutting someone else out, that's not a good deal. And that is going to come back to get you. I have to be able to sleep at night. I'm not trying to grow my business through cutting, someone out of a deal. If I made a deal with you that I'm going to give you this money for referring someone to me, I'm going to pay it.
Yeah.
I can see a mistake happening every now and then, but I would make it right. How do you just 50%? Oh my goodness. Anyway, that blew my mind.
And I have to say, all of our recruiters, they're working with me because they're people that I trust and that they're good recruiters and have good jobs. And so, you are sort of self-selected, we're working together for that reason too. So,
yeah.
So you're
and I say you hold your recruiters accountable if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Listen. That is just horrible for the industry. I don't like that at all. Anyway, so also we have to motivate our employees. So we spend money on awards and things for them as well. So typically you celebrate your top producers and your top recruiters in your agency, and there's a cost associated with that. Another really big expense is the ATS or a database, and you have to have one. You have to have some kind of way to keep track of all the people that you're talking to. You have to have some kind of organized system, and those things are costly. Yeah. So there's tons of different ones out there, but every major agency has something. Excel does not work. Can't do it.
Yeah, they're time consuming to keep up, and they are expensive, and you have to pay for every seat, and you have to pay to set it up. And it's like a walking nightmare.
Yeah. And there's no way around it. They know IP addresses. So you're paying per seat, per license. You have to, and it's just kind of a necessary evil. You have to have it, but it is quite expensive. And then of course there's accounting services, because we've got tons of employment taxes to pay, all of the different bills. So each agency typically has an accounts payable department, an accounts receivable. So the AR team are the people that are calling to make sure that the clients, the hospitals or clinics or schools in my realm, is we're a school staffing agency, that they haven't lost your invoice. Because we front this money, right? We pay that traveler right away. And most of our contracts with these companies and schools, for me, say that they're going to pay me in 30 days.
Right.
So you have to float that money. And so having someone dedicated to making sure nothing gets lost in the shuffle is really important. And that usually comes out of the accounting services side. And then legal services. Unfortunately, things happen. We have workers' comp claims, things that, come up around malpractice. So if you have an issue with, let's say you drop a patient or something, you got to have attorneys and things like that represent you. So by working for an agency, we have the attorney that works with you, represents you in any claims. Any issues like that. So there's always legal things that are going on. Unfortunately.
To me, that's the big thing about not being a 1099 employee. And I'm not saying travelers shouldn't do it. I'm not saying that at all. I don't have a stance on it. Me personally, I think if something happens at the hospital and someone is going to be the scapegoat for it, it's probably going to be the person that doesn't have an attorney. Like, who can we
Yeah.
blame that isn't us, right?
You have to have your own attorney. And so when you work with an agency, that attorney is your attorney. They're not there to protect. They're protecting you and the agency. They're
Yeah.
not there to protect the hospital or the client. And I mean, things happen, but you need to protect yourself. So when you are 1099, you kind of have to be. I mean, I've had crazy situations where a home health provider had a really bad car accident where he T-boned an 18-wheeler, and the accident was more than your normal auto insurance coverage would cover. And because of he was an agency employee, we had umbrella coverage that took care of him, took care of the trucking company. Because I think, like, well, at least in the state of Texas, it's like $50,000. That's what you have to have. But if you hit an Aston Martin or an 18-wheeler, or that's not going to cover it. But then the agency is paying for additional insurance and umbrella over you. So if something really huge happens, you're covered.
Right. And
And
that's
so,
the distinction is if you're 1099, you are employed for yourself. You're your own man, you have your own coverage, your own lawyers, your own insurance. It's you. If you work for an agency, they're not just representing you. You are a W-2 employee of that agency. So if you screw up, if something happens with your name on it, the agency is also liable for you. So you better
yes,
believe that they are covering you to cover themselves. And that is the reason I stay under agencies personally. Again, that's everybody can, make their own decisions, but that's
yeah.
where I
And
live.
everyone has to assess their own risk tolerance, and mine is not very high. I tend to think, okay, well, we need to do this and be safe. So we have umbrella coverages. Most agencies do. It depends on the type of facilities that you work at. Some clients require more than others, but I mean, there's tons of stories out there where it just makes sense to work with the agency, and it just helps you understand where all those additional costs come from. So from that percentage, or from that perspective, I would say that's how so we're talking in all of that. That's about a 17, sometimes 20% cost of the job, and
Mm-hmm.
then that leaves a profit of about 10%.
Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, we started talking about, a typical paycheck. If it's $2,800 a week, about 750 of those dollars goes to the agency. So you're taking about $2,050, well, minus your expenses, your taxes on your portion and your
Mm-hmm.
insurance. And the agency, so of that $756 that they're keeping, their profit is $280. Okay.
Right.
And so, and of that, just curious, of that 280, do you still have to pay the recruiter
No, that's so like the payroll and awards and so that's included. So the 280 is profit. Now,
got
but
it,
that's how you have cash flow.
got it.
If you
Okay.
don't ever have profit, because like I said, you gotta front a lot of these costs, right?
Right,
The
right.
biggest
You have to
expense is the
have
travel.
Yeah, you have to have the
So,
capital to be able to front these contracts because you're paying us before the
mhm.
hospital ever pays you. You pay us, and then later the hospital ends up, you bill the hospital and they pay you. But there's like at least a 30-day discrepancy in that. So,
At
one,
least,
they're
yeah,
floating us our paychecks before they ever get paid. And two, nobody goes into business to work for free. So they're
right.
doing all of this.
So
They
you're,
deserve to earn money for setting all of this up for us, right? This is a service that they're
yeah,
providing to us.
I will say 10% is considered a very effective, very, very highly effective staffing company. Most are running more in the 7 to 8% range,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to have cash flow. And like you said, no one really is in business to not make money. But I just want to give a clear picture of there is definitely a profit there for the agency, but it's by far and large probably not what everybody thinks it is.
Right.
There's a lot of costs associated with doing this business for sure. And so that's that's really the skinny behind the numbers.
Awesome. Well, DeLibra, thank you so much for going over that. I mean, gosh, we got into such good content. I didn't think we were going to get such a deep dive, but I'm so glad we had. This is one of the best conversations I've had about this stuff. This was really, really good information. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that we didn't get to touch on?
I'll just say again, hold your recruiters accountable. If there's things that they owe you, or you
still
sure you're getting them.
That can't be real. It's real. We took the poll in our Facebook group. I said, how often do you actually get paid? You know your friend worked for that company. How often you get paid? 50% of the time.
That is so, I don't know, disheartening and startling. And I'm going to assume that most of it is just disorganization within the agency, or I don't know. But
I have to tell you, the first agency that I worked for, I know that after I finished my contract, they had like 5 people go and work for them from me, because my recruiter had told me, and I said, hey, when am I going to get those referral bonuses for those people? And she goes, oh, well, in order to get your referral bonuses, they have to complete 480 hours, which is sort of typical that agencies do.
Yeah.
So if they only worked 36 hours a week and not 40 hours a week, then like, sorry, you didn't, they would have to take another contract. And 2, she said, I had to be on contract at the same time that they finished their contract in order to be eligible. I know it's yucky. It wasn't a cute look. So I did not ever get those. And
they were totally using that for a retention tool. You got to stay with us in order to get the
100%,
money.
100%. That is definitely what happened. I mean, and I definitely have agencies too running the list. I have one agency that has an outstanding bill of $4,000 that they just ignore me. You know what I mean? It's not, and it's a big agency. Everyone knows what that agency is. So, you know.
Yeah, well, that's disheartening. I mean, I mean, if they made the money off of, I don't know. Anyway, okay. Hold them accountable, and don't be afraid. Now that you've seen the numbers and you know what's there, if you feel that you're entitled to more, I never get offended or upset. And, you know, I feel like, I don't know, I've just come from a tough industry from the other side of things. Staffing's pretty tough. You have to make sure you know your worth, and you have to ask for it. So don't feel as if you can't ask for what you know you deserve. And we will do whatever we can, you know, to try to make it work and do it, you know. And sometimes you just have to be mindful of that. If you if you're savvy about it, and you know, if you're location specific, but the only thing in that location is a MSP job, or that particular client has a reputation of having a lower bill rate, then you have to make a decision. Like, maybe for this assignment, you take a bit of a cut to make it work, or you go somewhere. I mean, the best rates typically are more rural locations. I mean, everybody wants to be in LA so they can charge whatever, you know. It's like, if you want a really good rate, you sometimes have to go a little bit out. But there's a little magic in that too. You end up seeing things that you never would have really known about if you just venture out a little more.
My favorite contracts are in the really rural locations, because I can make anything fun. And if you're super rural, you're probably really close to nature. Like, I love those middle of nowhere contracts. Like, I'm bound and determined. I'm like, ooh, what fun things can I find in this town? I don't know. I'm a weirdo. I love that.
No, I think that's awesome. You find all kinds of treasures that you wouldn't have ever known to really see or experience before, and you make a really good living.
I agree 100%. That's exactly where I am. If I pop on a next contract, I'm going to be wherever. Send me wherever. It'll be an adventure.
I like that. You're very open-minded. I wish more people were that way. Sometimes some people are, you know, are just very location specific, and maybe your life just won't allow you to do that right now. But if you can, you should take advantage of some of the rural locations, because that's where the rates are usually the best.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. And it's hard to get you as a traveler, you're not going to be very successful if you're location specific. I know that's what happens when travelers start. I think they go, I'm going to go to Washington in the summer. And then for the fall, I'm going to pop up to Portland. September, I'm going to roll over. And you're like, and in my head, like, I'm not going to say this, but I'm thinking like, that's never going to happen. Like, what's going to happen is you're going to think you're going to Washington, but you're going to end up in San Francisco. Something will happen, you might get caught, and then you end up like, I don't know, down south in California somewhere. Like, you're gonna go where your adventure takes you, and it's not gonna be where you think it is. It's just very unlikely.
you're like, oh, that's nice. That's a movie.
You're so cute. That's funny. All right. Well, DeLibra, thank you so
Thank you
much
for
for talking
having
to
me.
us. This was a gold mine of information, and I'm really happy to have it available to us and for all the other travelers. So thank you for doing this to me. If you want to work with DeLibra as your recruiter, she is the CEO of her company, and she is representing her company on the list as a recruiter. So you can have her as a CEO, as your personal recruiter if you want through the list. So her link is going to be posted in the bio. So if you want to work with her, if you want to see her jobs, if you want to get a hold of her, you can just click on her link. And if you're signed into the list, you can get a hold of her directly. It'll have her email, her phone number, and you can just work directly with her there. And she is a fantastic recruiter, obviously, or she wouldn't own her own agency at this point. So definitely reach out to her if you're interested. And DeLibra, what kinds of travelers are you staffing most? I believe you're mostly school systems. Is that correct?
Yes, we're focused in schools. We're working in the special education departments. So we're looking for speech language pathologists, OTs, educational diagnosticians, and school psychologists are our major specialties. And so now is the time. The schools are opening up. A great way to make a lot of money, and they're all direct jobs. There's no VMS involved. So that's a big reason why I chose to focus in this particular area. And you get a really nice lengthy assignment. So schools are actually looking for full-time, part-time, the whole 9 months. If you can only do 3 or 6 months, they're open up to taking whatever they can at this. I mean, unfortunately, because of COVID, a lot of the services that the kiddos needed last year weren't available. So things are a bit behind. So they need us. So come check me out. I have lots of jobs.
Perfect. Okay. Well, like I said, if you're interested in working with DeLibra, her link will be in the description. You can click on that and get a hold of her directly. Otherwise, thank you so much, DeLibra, for joining us. And if you guys have any questions, just enter them below and we will talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.